Hello, everyone. Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Welcome to sixth Roundtable Conference organized by Tsaaro. I'll be your moderator for today. My name is Lata. I work as a privacy specialist at Intel. My area of expertise include IoT, privacy risks, smart moving privacy risks, privacy by design assessments for the product, either in the healthcare domain or the Intel specific products now that I'm part of semiconductor organization. So that's a little bit about me. Um, just to let you know about Tsaaro, who is the Roundtable Conference organizer for today. Tsaaro is a leading privacy and security service provider, helping businesses across technology companies and new age startups to secure their applications through future ready solutions that help keep up with the changing technology landscape. I would like to highlight today's topic of discussion, which is leading women in privacy. So, who can better let us know other than the great panelists who are ladies who are on call for today? Without delaying further, let me get started. I would like to start with Smriti. Smriti, could you please let us know a little bit about your journey in the privacy domain and what were your learnings along your way of the privacy career?
So I'm Smriti Pradhan. I work as a senior data privacy consultant and I'm currently based out of UAE. I have overall 7+ years of industry experience. So I worked as a software developer for 2, 3 years and then eventually I did my MBA. And once my MBA got over, I landed my job into risk and compliance consultancy. So it was back in the year 2018 when I was fortunate enough to be given this opportunity by the senior management of my organization to build the privacy practice. And that opportunity in itself was not just a stepping stone in my career, but it actually built the foundation of my data privacy journey. So once we were involved in building up the privacy practice, which was non-existent in the organization at that point of time, I eventually got introduced to multiple regulations. I had to invest immense amount of hours in reading regulations and understanding the tools and technologies that were there in the market, which further built my acumen and my interest into this field. So currently, my expertise actually lies in consulting and advising customers and building the entire privacy programs end to end. And at the same time, I help them in process transformation, letting them know which is the right technology to choose in order to operationalize the data privacy operations. So yeah, that's it about my journey, and I really look forward to an insightful session with all the panelists and all the people who have joined us. Thank you.
That was great to know. Would any of you like to add more about your specific journey? How was your entry into this privacy domain?
So basically, I had done my master's in IPR and innovation science and technology. So basically, when I was working with Capgemini, I would say it was more into HR compliances. And at that time, before GDPR was rolled out and the privacy was known to the legal fraternity, at that time, it so happened that all the applications that the organization I was associated with at that time, was getting centralized, and I was like curious why the centralization is happening, why globally these applications are coming on a same platform, and these things happening. So we got to know about GDPR, and that's where from an HR compliance person, I shifted my journey to a GDPR or a privacy field. So I would say it's to all the women or anyone who wants to pursue their career in privacy. You can get into it and you can start at any point of time. It's only the time and energy, effort in uh, studying the law is something that you have to put your time into.
With that, I would like to move on to the next speaker. And this question is for Ranu. Ranu, there are advancements being made in the field of data privacy each day. How do you think one should stay themselves updated with these advancements to enhance their career?
I think there is no dearth of resources, I would say, to start with in privacy. There are so many ways you can learn. You can follow ICOs, you can follow all the different supervisory bodies. They keep on releasing different guidances around what is happening, what you should be doing. I think IIPP is one of the biggest resources I think all of us tap into to get our learnings and to get our updates on what is happening around the world in privacy. And I will share is I follow a lot of people on LinkedIn because that is another great way to learn from people because there are so many legal experts. And apart from that, I think taking these courses, which are like CIPM or CIPPE, they help massively, because they actually help me validate my understanding on what I'm doing every day and what we are doing on ground, and validating it with the learning and knowledge. It always helps enhance the ideas in your mind to actually ensure that you are doing what others are also doing, and you can maybe do something better and share that knowledge with people.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
definitely vouch for that, Ranu. Hi, myself, Shri. Definitely, I do follow leaders on social media. I think that's the one of the powerful tool that definitely I use. And attending conferences, that's another thing. Yes, it comes with an expensive bit, but there are conferences where they do provide lots of free seminars where people can enroll themselves.
And just to add to the points that Ranu and Shri provided, of course, you can always look for privacy resources that are made available on the IAPP portal, OneTrust, DSCI, and Navi.org is also a website where you can find more about cyber laws and privacy related stuffs. Networking is the key for sure, that you need to be part of these organizations and meet more with the privacy professionals, exchange the knowledge, and of course, these all would help you in keeping yourself up to date. With that, I would move on to Sangyojita. So, what are some of the essential things to keep in mind while implementing privacy in an organization?
So basically, I think that whenever there is implementation happening, there are lots of policies and procedures that are created during the process of compliance. But the enforcement is the key here, is which is lost somewhere where, say, for example, a retention policy or a guideline will be created. But whether that retention policy and guideline is implemented to the ground level, wherein the tools and the platforms are built within the organization for the customer or for their own use, is somewhere it's lost. So according to me, that main key lies into the enforcement and putting into use the policies and the procedure and the guidelines that are created for the compliance. It should not be only for the sake of compliance. These things are created, but they should be put to the ground level and put to use, wherein there is a retention schedule created, where there is purging activity happening within those tools and all. And secondly, I feel any organization, there are lots of rights, as we know, when it comes to privacy, rights to the users, which are the data subjects. There is a duty that comes along with that right that is given to the user. That duty is to the organization or the professionals to ensure that that right can be exercised by the individual. So whenever there is a platform or a tool created, ensure that that particular right is embedded into that tool. So if there is a right to access, the person should be able to access that particular thing in a platform. So I say that practical implementation should take place whenever there is a tool or a platform getting built in. And the scoping is very important from for me, whether when you're doing a PIA or a privacy impact assessment or something like that, whether there is a personal information involved or not is the base of any impact assessment that you're doing ahead, right? So what happens, I've usually seen with an organization, you're doing a PIA, but it's not for personal information you're doing a PIA. It's for a non-personal information also you're doing a PIA, which is not true, right? Which is not correct. It's only should be for a personal information that you should do a PIA. So likewise, these are a few things that I feel that should be followed. And
Just to add on to Sanyogita's point, I think a lot of times when we enter into consulting exercises, the pushback which we see is from the management or from the stakeholders, right, who generally don't understand the language of privacy. So in that case, it becomes extremely crucial. You make sure that your stakeholders are in alignment with what the privacy program demands. And for that, it's very important to make them realize that why it's always better to stay ahead of the curve and why such programs will make sense for the organization. So I think stakeholder buy-in can only take place when you take up training programs, awareness programs, make them understand in their language, which they understand, to go forward with a program like this.
Um, with that, I would move on with my next question, and this question is to Sri Vidya. So, Shri, how did you meet the global privacy regulatory requirements in an organization? Because in the recent past, we have come across GDPR, CCPA, and China's law, and again, India has a draft one and we will have to comply as and when it turns into a law. So, how do you think that we have to approach and ensure that we meet these global regulatory requirements, being a privacy professional in the organization? How do you ensure that?
That's the biggest challenge, I would say, in any organization. Uh, I will talk about my experience with Emirates Airlines when we have to implement GDPR. As you know, it's like our bread and butter is customer. So what we have done is like, first thing is like we want to actually know the specific requirements. For us, even though we are based out in UAE, our operating is more from an UK perspective. So we want to understand the laws and regulations of the country where we are going to process the data, as well as where it is going to be stored. So first step, I would say, it is like understand the laws and regulations of your organization and what is the specific need of it, and have a kind of a conversation. It may not be a kind of an official, but have a conversation with the business units, because they are the owners of the data. We are just custodians in the DPO, but they are the owners of the data. Understand from them, it is like what personal data is being processed or being stored, and do an impact assessment of that. The third, definitely, the risk factors which is involved into that, and privacy policies. Share it with your vendors, with your customers, and get the feedback. Important factors, it is like be on the ground and understand what really exactly needs to be done and start executing it. So it works both the ways, top down as well as on the bottom up approach.
So Lata, I would just like to add one thing, that when we talk about an organization which is operating in a multi-regulatory environment, I think we become very skeptical. Oh my God, we have got like two, three laws which are coming into picture. But as such, if you see, all these laws are based on six core principles of data privacy, which is integrity and confidentiality, lawfulness and transparency, storage limitation, accuracy, and then you have purpose limitation and data minimization. So if you build a control framework across these lines, I think it will become very, very easier for organizations to know where they are currently and what is the target model they want to achieve.
Indeed. So, as Smriti says and Shri says, it's just the gap assessment that we have to do once we have things in place. So, there could be very minimal delta changes that you may have to do in order to adhere to the new law or the update that would have done from privacy regulation perspective. So, with that, what are the trends that we need to watch out in 2023 from data privacy perspective, and what are the key skills that one needs to grab for the upcoming opportunities in 2023 in the data privacy domain?
So I will state my opinion on a fact which I read recently. So Gartner released this report last year, where it said that many of the organizations currently are failing on providing a proper privacy user experience. So when I say privacy user experience, basically many organizations do not have the right transparency mechanism in place. The consent management mechanism is not up to the mark, and also the level of maturity that is seen in terms of automating subject rights requests, that is not proper. Now, the impact what it is having is it's leading to a lot of complaints over a period of time, and these complaints will only rise as more and more individuals become aware of what they can do with the laws, right? So that is where it is recommended that organizations should start looking forward to a people-centric program where they're putting privacy and they're putting and investing a lot of money on the privacy user experience, and adding these base elements at the core of their transparency principle, and of course putting up the right notices and the right consent management mechanisms in place. So that is one thing which organizations should be looking forward to. The other area I think the professionals should try to increase in terms of their breadth is going forward and learning about the data governance fundamentals, because at the end of the day you need to maintain whether you have the right quality of data in place or do you have the accurate data in your systems. So data governance is also something, one skill that needs to be improved, and that somebody who wants to explore this field, he might get into this field as well.
Ranu, what do you like to add more to this?
Definitely, AI is something which is going to be a challenge for all of us to understand the risk which it brings in. Along with that, I think IoT and mobile computing is also all of us should look at, because there are so many use cases around these two areas which we generally use in everyday life, but we don't think about it. privacy leaders are thinking about it. They understand that what kind of implications it brings. But we, as privacy professionals, need to think about the implications of in our organization, in our personal lives. That is one area I think, that is one skill we need to develop, about thinking of privacy implications in everything we deal with. Cross-border transfers is, it's not a skill, but it's an area people need to tap into, to keep an eye, because that is impacting all of us, whichever company, whichever country we work in. And I think understanding how to implement these global privacy program, because most of the companies now start going global, so you have to understand how the implementations happen across the organizations. And last but not the least, what I started with, privacy engineering is an area in which none of us can miss. That is something which we have to ensure we keep on top of and keep learning about, because it's a journey. You will never find a place where you can say that I'm an expert, because the whole area is evolving.
Indeed, thanks a lot. So I totally agree with all your viewpoints. AI, ML things that are booming in the new technology field. Anything and everything has the AI touch to that. A lot of data sets that they gather and they use to train these models, and whether they are using this to enhance the user experience or for profiling the users is what we need to watch out for. And of course, a lot of sensors which involves IoT, where we have many things that wake on voice, voice commands. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we as privacy professionals need to keep ourselves updated with the technology. Indeed. I have a question. Again, it is open for any of the panelists. So I normally, through my career, I have seen the privacy as such is seen as a overhead, where people kind of try to push it back with their timelines, achieving the business needs. What are the challenges that you have faced, and how have you convinced those teams to help them understand, okay, this is indeed important, and need they have to do things that they are expected to from privacy compliance perspective?
I'll share my experience. It's a while back when GDPR got implemented that I had got a chance to operationalize privacy while training and working with different business operation departments. So that is when I started sitting down with different departments to understand what kind of activities they do and how privacy risk gets integrated with those activities. The act of identifying these risks with them was actually a good selling point, because they could understand where we were coming from, not just telling them that what the regulation asks for, rather than telling them how privacy risks will implicate or what could happen because of this, was one way to sell it to the people on the ground. Second way is, I think, Lata, your question is valid, because I work in implementing global privacy programs for our clients, and this is always a challenge to sell that business use case, right? Business case, to create that business case. Why should you do it, or why is it required? Because you're already spending a ton of money to be compliant, right? When you're convincing a C-suite or a senior management or senior stakeholders, it's always about, right, what kind of fines or regulatory implications you might have, or the damage of the brand. So I think that has always been a selling point, or a negotiating point with them. That is where I feel that we get the buy-in what we need from the stakeholders.
I would like to add here, Lata. So when I was even implementing it for the organizations, one of the USP, the best selling point was there's one principle called as accuracy, which was usually ignored when we implement privacy. So how to maintain accuracy within the data sets and earn out of it. So when I was working for HR in the recruitment function there, so usually the recruitment data, it becomes redundant after a specific point of time, wherein the candidates upscale and the data is not accurate, that is with the organizations. So they need to keep upgrading that data, making it more accurate so that they get more accurate results with the analytical tools and the platforms that they use. So we said that your platform should be accurate. You should send an emailers to your candidates saying that update your profile or something, and that can be your selling point. So basically, from these principles, how we can sell it to the uh, within the organization, probably our customers also, is one of the major thing I see that these principles can be your selling points, how you put it to your clients and your customers. So
Generally, when you see organizations, especially banks or any other retail companies, right, the major pushback actually comes from the marketing department, because they're like, our entire personalization is based on the data which we are processing right now. And if we opt for systems which are based on consent, maybe we will not be able to provide that kind of a personalization. So I just want to say that it's never privacy versus personalization, it's always privacy and personalization. So, and even if you look at the reports, right, it has been proved that 44% of the organizations, they have actually been able to gather more customers because of because of the privacy controls they have in place, and when they put up systems based on consent. So I think that entire notion about marketing cannot work if systems are based on consent. I think that is something which needs to be challenged, and the only way it can be challenged is you give them use cases which they understand, and how their system is actually contributing to the entire privacy program. So that is one thing, Tata.
I agree. So the reputational laws, financial laws are the key to make people understand the importance of privacy. I have a question to panelists. I would like to touch base upon the incidents or the DSR requests. So whatever you feel comfortable with. How do you handle any DSR requests? If there's a huge organizations that you're part of, there would be a lot of requests that you may get. So, how do you normally handle such requests in addressing or abiding to those data subject requests that come in?
See, what we have done in our organization, so we identify the business box or a privacy champions in each of the business unit, because people think that it is like DPO is there and they can do wonders. So, so when we set up the data privacy, so that's not the real fact or in a practical scenario. So the data privacy champions in each of the business units, when there is some DSAR comes in place, data subject access requests. So they get into that business specific area and see it is like what kind of access rights has been asked for, has been looked for. Because as I was mentioning, right, we are into the Emirates Airlines. So our data, customer data is our bread and butter. So there were lots of requests they wanted to know is like more from a marketing specific. They want to know it is like how our data is being used, and especially with respect to the kins, when the kappa came in picture, right, lots of our US clients got into this kin information which we are capturing. They really wanted to know how it is being used. Is it the right authority to us for us to use it or not? So we really have to look into that elements of the data and a particular business unit. And then we worked with the DPO and seen that it is like what's the best thing then we can do. It is not one or two requests. When I was talking about that, we got some in thousands of requests from us alone on from the customer base. So we need to act upon on that and enhance our privacy policy, and make sure that it is like within the timelines that we respond back to them. And we made sure that it is like even the organization is aware of such things as happening internally. That's the important key factor. People always think that it is like, okay, it is only specific to my business unit and only that business has to be responsible or accountable for that. It's not that. Once that's done right, we want to make sure that it is like every organization, every member in the organization understands that it is like how it is being done. So we took it as a use case, and whenever we provide the training awareness program to them, we use that as a live use case.
One thing I would like to add on that is we've been working with a global company recently, and it's a cosmetics brand. And we've seen that there are multiple sub business units, and the processes are not very integrated. That's one challenge which we face on DSARs and as well as on incident management. So until unless you have a very strong process to capture that information, you'll either even not know that there are requests coming in, because there are so many channels to get requests. You have your customer services, you have your websites. There are so many ways information requests can come in. So I think having a strong process around capturing that information and tracking it also ensures you to understand how whether you're handling them properly or not. So I think that is one of the starting points which I would to any privacy professional, that you need to first build a structure to capture that information, and then you parallelly worry about how it is dealt with. That is also an important area in this.
Thank you. With this note, I would like to thank all the speakers who took out time and to be part of the session and have shared their experience and knowledge with all of us here. A special thanks to Tsaaro to bring us all together, participants and the speakers as well. Thanks a lot again, everybody.